And I want to put to you, great. Thank you, Bill. I want to put forward today that there's really only three ways to grow your business, and I'll show you those three key ways, and we'll talk about which of them makes sense for where you are in your journey, and I'll talk about how you can implement the specific strategy in your business, depending on which one makes sense for you. We'll talk about how to design a customer journey for your business because a lot of the time growth is difficult because we don't really have a clear path that we want to take our customers from so that they can progress from strangers to customers and then hopefully to evangelists of the brand. So it's how do we map that out in a way that's clear? And then once that's mapped out, then how can we use technology and AI to then amplify the work that we've already put down on paper? Um, and also give you some tips on how you can implement it for your business. So without further ado, I think let's get started. Just quickly, again, I want to just quickly tell you a bit about myself just to establish some credibility here. So as you know, my name, Yemi Oluseun. I come from a small line of small business owners. So both my parents are entrepreneurs. So I grew up with small business all around me. But I started my career working for big, large investment banks. So working for JP Morgan, Barclays, HSBC, and the like. But I've always kind of wanted to do small business stuff. So following my fancy MBA at LBS, London Business School, I thought to myself, how can I use all the skills I've learned at big business and deploy it to small business? And that was the birthplace of most of the work that I'm doing now. Essentially, for big business, my job was to come in and really understand the as is process and map out the customer journeys or exactly what we're doing, and then work out how technology can be used to amplify it and make it better. So I've taken all that beautiful skill set and I'm now deploying it now for small businesses. What makes us different at the Change Hive is our approach is very data informed. So I'm very keen on measuring actual things that we're doing to make sure that the changes we're making has quantifiable impact. Otherwise, growth can be very haphazard and all over the place, and we try to avoid that as much as possible. I like to keep the sessions interactive, but because I know some of you are on a very hard timeline, I want to get through all the content in about, say, 30 to 45 minutes, and then I'll have 50 minutes at the end for questions. But if you have questions, please put it in the chat. If it was a smaller group, I would have said put your hand up and I'll answer the questions on the fly, but it just gets very disruptive. So that's the only reason I want to hear questions in the through the session, but please put it on the chat and then at the end I'll go through it. But I'll try to finish this in half an hour so we have time for questions. Okay, so question everybody in the chat, engage me here. Is this when you think of growth, do you just think like you just have to go faster, harder, and just push, 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 push? Turn up your volume. Oh, you can't hear me? I hope you can hear me now. Someone says turn up your volume. Lovely background. Thank you. It's just a white wall. Um, okay. When you think of growth, is this the image of growth that you have? Anybody? Do you guys just think, oh, I just need to run faster on the treadmill and just like throw many things at you and hopefully something sticks and then you end up so stressed out. For most business owners, this is exactly what they think about when they think of growth, right? Is let's just go faster and harder and hopefully something works. But I want to put forward hopefully a simpler approach today. I want to demystify growth. So when we think about growth, really there's only three ways to grow your business, very, very simply. You can either grow by getting more customers, or you can grow by charging more for your value or services that you offer, or grow by selling more to your existing customer. So to explain that further, growth happens in the intersection of any two key functions in your business. Most businesses have three key functions, right? So for you to be in business, you have to have at least three departments or three teams. You have to have a marketing team or marketing department. And that team, by the way, can be you. So you could be the three teams. So one person is three teams. Joys of entrepreneurship. So you have to have a marketing team, right, that tells people that you exist. Then you have to have a sales team that tells the people that find out that you exist to buy your product and hopefully they buy. And then you have to have an operations team that delivers on the service that you promised them during sales. So three teams at the very least for any business to run. Now, growth happens when you improve at least two of those three teams. So if you want to get more customers, you have to do more marketing and sell to the people you market to. So you get more customers by improving your marketing and your sales. If you want to improve retention, so you want to keep the existing customers you have, you do that by improving your marketing and your operations, and you deliver better value to the customers you have. And then once you've done that, you then also go back to them and say, oh, by the way, did you like my service? If you did, would you like to buy some more products from me or do more work with me or more services, right? So you retain more of the clients you have. Or finally, you can grow by increasing your prices, and you increase your prices by offering more value, right? By being able to differentiate how you're different from everybody else in the market. And also at the same time, reducing your operational cost. So you can increase your prices by selling more or at higher prices and also having more efficient operations. So simply put, three ways to grow. Does this make sense to anybody? Who can anybody think of any other ways apart from this three ways to grow in the chat? Am I seeing a no? Exactly, which is so higher prices and lower cost. Exactly, exactly. So essentially, still those three ways, right? So point two covers the reduce expense, which is reduce your operational cost. Yeah. So those three ways. So please just bear that in mind. Acquisitions, which is more customers. You can acquire more customers. So acquisitions, so you merge another brand because you see operational synergies, but really that operational synergies would fall into one of these three brackets as well. Yeah. So we can call it lots of different things, but they would ultimately fall into those three brackets in the long term. Yeah. So again, to summarize, growth comes from doing three things: attracting more prospects with a clear message, so finding more leads and making them cost, finding more leads, one. Secondly, doing more sales. Regina, go on mute. Someone's singing. Good voice, by the way. Um, so second comes from converting more strangers to customers, so doing better sales, so having a clearer sales process. And the third way, by retaining more of your customers and having them coming back. I'm gonna see if I can mute. Bill, can you help me mute Regina Samuels? Thank you. Okay. Um, So essentially, all of this can only really be done if you have a clear customer journey. What makes all of this challenging to do? So doing those three things well. So doing good lead nurture. So finding good leads, converting them to customers, and then keeping them long term is a factor of being able to have a clear plan or clear customer journey that takes strangers from not knowing you at all to knowing more about you, getting to know, like, and trust you, and then buy your services and then enjoy using it and then keep coming back and then tell more people about it. All of that I just said is really what we call a customer journey or AKA a sales funnel. The reason I'm trying not to say sales funnel, sometimes I think when we say sales funnels, it can be quite dehumanizing and it feels very forceful and very like, I don't know, like you're trying to get, trying to funnel people down. But I think when you say journey, it feels more humanized. It's like you're taking people on this journey with you and you're getting them to accelerate their commitment to you as they see value. So at every step in this journey, and I'll show you as we build up this training, you're exchanging value. And as they get value from you and they're enjoying the journey, they keep committing and their commitment accelerates to your business. Thank you so much for that, Caroline. They accelerate commitment to you as they see that they also, so it's a mutually beneficial process. I feel sometimes with funnel, it almost feels like we're trying to force people, funnel them through against their will. So that's kind of why I'm trying to say, let's think about it more like a journey. So how it will look like will be in 6 steps. I think it's taking your business and take a step back and think about it in 6 steps segment. Number one, what is your brand awareness strategy? So how do prospects or how do strangers, I think prospects can be very fancy a word sometimes. So it's strangers. How do random people on the streets, so Joe Blogs around the corner, how does if he's the right customer for you, how does he first hear about you? What's your plan to get your name out there? What's your brand awareness strategy? Number two, what's your plan to nurture them? So once Joe Blogs on the streets, that is your ideal customer hears of you, how would you get to build your know, like, trust with him? For many business owners, we don't, this is one step that we tend to skip on, unfortunately. We tend to do a lot of, say, for example, Facebook ads or a lot of going on, what's that thing called? Um, Conferences. That's not the word I'm looking for, but you go on conferences and they have like exhibitions. You go on lots of exhibitions and you do lots of like talking and you exchange lots of business cards, but then we don't have a good follow-up process or a good lead nurturing process. So we spend all this money on marketing, but because we don't really nurture the leads for long enough, we end up losing those leads and we go back to trying to win more customers every time. So it's what is the plan to really nurture the leads and build that know, like, trust with a stranger? Once you have nurtured them, what's your plan to sell to them? Now, for my consultants or my service-based business owners, when this is not working, what it looks like is you're forever doing discovery calls. So you have a call for a call for a call for a call for a call. Oh, I've got nurture spelled wrong. Apologies. I'll fix that. Thank you for calling that out, Greg. Thank you. So without a clear conversion process, because you're not asking for the sale or the sale path is not clear, you're forever consulting, and nothing is converting into sales, right? So it's having a clear, this is the offer, this is why you should work with me, this is the guarantee that it's going to work, and here is why. Just being clear on exactly what the offer is and that sales process. So whether you're going to use the spin sales process or something else, but having that clear, structured sales process is what that converts step three is all about. On step four, now somebody has now given you money and now wants to get services back. What is your plan to deliver value to this customer? How do you make sure that the promises you made in the conversion stage, you actually do deliver on it? And how do you measure it? How do you measure the time to value? Because of course we live in a society where people want value quick, right? So as soon as I give you some cash, I want to, before buyer's remorse starts to set in, I want to see some value coming back to me, like that makes me feel like, oh my God, that was the right decision. So the shorter the time to value is for your services or for your product, usually the better the retention will be, right? If I have to wait a whole year or a long time to see value, then at that point, the chatter in my head kicks in. My friends start to tell me stuff and everybody's telling me different things. So it's looking at your services, how do you break it up in such a way that you can give value as quickly as possible? Maybe not all the value, of course, not all the value, but enough that the person feels like, oh my God, yes, I've got something and I feel like this could work for me. And that excitement keeps going. Third, once you've given the value, what's your plan to retain the customer? How do you make sure you, first of all, collect feedback from the customer to make sure that they affirm that they are happy with the value that they got in the delivery service? How do you make sure you then anticipate what else they might need and also proactively tell them, like, hey, so you've now done A to B with me. I recommend going B to C next. And here is the step, or here is the plan to go B to C. So how do you proactively reach out to the customer to offer what the next step ought to be, whether it's your services or you partnering with somebody else for a commission? So refer them. Um, can you do a poll for that? Yeah. Uh, let's come back to that, Imran. Yes, exactly. You can, Imrani. That's a good point. So how do you retain them? So by, making sure you upsell, what's the next thing? So you recommend what the next steps are. You get feedback on, are they happy with the service? And ideally get them to post the feedback publicly, because then the more reviews you have of your business, the shorter your sales cycle becomes, because then when it comes to nurturing new leads, they can look at your Google review and be like, oh my God, this guy is really great. He's got 5,000 5-star reviews. Somebody must really like him. And it means that it makes it easier for you to sell. So how do you make sure you get reviews? And more importantly, how do you make sure in this retention plan, you ask for referrals? Because too often, many of us have been in business for a long time, but we never ask our customers that like us, by the way, who do you know that could benefit from my service? Like just that simple. And you start to build up. And then finally, what's your plan for being able to predict when somebody's likely going to drop off? Because usually before customers fall off or stop patronizing our businesses, there's usually a sign. Usually, maybe the customer used to call you, say, I don't know, every other week, and now they've stopped calling, and then they're not calling as often. If you have an app, they're not logging in as often. Like, are there telltale signs that you can use to proactively predict that this customer is likely to churn? And when you do sense that, can you then proactively take cost corrective actions? Like, can you then reach out to them like proactively, like, hey, we noticed you haven't done this. Do you need any help with this? Or, how can we support you to use our services better? Or do you have a problem? Or if you miss all the signs and they just churn without you realizing it, what's the plan to win them back? Right. So you don't keep just losing customers as quickly as you get them. So you'll find that by thinking about your business in these 6 steps, which I'm going to cover in more detail now in the following slides, you'll have a clear customer journey, right, of exactly how you want to take strangers that don't know you, make them customers, and ideally keep them for as long as possible. And then for each step, you also want to have like clear measurements as well for whether or not each step is working and where issues are, or maybe in the process. Hopefully that all makes sense. If it doesn't, put your questions in the chat and I'll come around to it. So in more detail, all the stuff I just talked about in more detail and with measures, what it looks like is you take those 6 steps, right? And you break it out into business functions, first of all. Remember, I told you there's 3 key functions of any business, right? Your marketing, your sales, and your operation. So if you think about it, the first 2 steps of your brand awareness and your nurturing are really like marketing slash sales function. So your marketing efforts, how are you going to get your word out there? When you get the word out there, how are you going to nurture those leads? Is it going to be via email? Are you going to have a YouTube channel? Are you going to have a newsletter? Are you going to like, how are people going to be able to look you up and keep finding out more about you so they can build that know, like, trust until they're ready to buy? Then to your third pillar, your sales function, how are you going to improve that, or what's the current sales process like? If you pick up the phone and you call people manually, do you record your calls? Are you listening to your scripts? Do you have a standard scripts that you go through? Or if it's all online, is your website well optimized? Is the call to action buttons very clear? Those kind of things, like, is it clearly optimized? Your delivery and the rest tends to be more operational and marketing functions. Um, on your delivery, how well are you doing? Like, are the customers happy? To Imrani's point, do you want to run surveys to ask for customer feedback and see what your net promoter score is? So, like, on average, what are your customers saying about you? Are they happy with the service? Are they likely to recommend you? With your net promoter score, so NPS, this is the survey you run with your customers to find out how happy they are. You want to look at the extremes, right? Usually the middles don't really tell you. So it's like the ones that are very, very happy, why are they very, very happy? The ones that are very, very sad or very, very upset, what makes them very, very upset? That tends to be a good starting point. So looking at the polar opposites, like what are the key recurring themes that stand out, right? So you break each of the 6 pillars into the relevant business functions. Number 2, you want to be clear on the goals that you have for each of these functions. Now, the reason I say this is I've now done this for a while now, and I find that, thank you, I find that, unfortunately, if we're not clear on the goals that we want to achieve for each function, we have the wrong goal, we have misaligned goals, and so we get disappointed. Because we don't have the right goals. So for example, you have somebody that's posting on Facebook or doing like content on Facebook, and they're upset that they're not getting customers. They're like, oh my God, I'm doing all this social media posts and nobody's buying from me. It's like, well, the goal of social media generally tends to be brand awareness, right? So your posting on social media is more for brand awareness, and you'll find it gets even worse. If you're posting on social media and then you don't have a clear call to action, or you don't have a lead magnet, that then means that the person seeing your post can then click on it, get some value from you, and in exchange give you their email address so that you can then keep nurturing them. It becomes wasted effort because now you're putting all the stuff out, but then there's no way to capture value back from the customer. So for each of these 6 steps is being clear on what's the goal for it. And I want to suggest to you that the goal for brand awareness is lead acquisition. So you post on social media to get leads, and to get the leads, usually you have to exchange value, and that exchange of value would probably be a lead magnet. Later in this slide, I'll give you some examples of some lead magnets that you may want to explore using, right, in your marketing efforts. So it could be things like ebooks, quizzes, discovery calls, those kind of things, right? You see I've got a whole list in the coming slides. Then your second step with your lead nurturing, the goal of this is to activate the lead, right? So now they know who you are. Now you want them to actually spend some money with you, right? You want them to kind of go over from going from seeing you as an entertainer, or going from seeing you as the provider of free content, to seeing you more like a business, right? Listen, I'm here to make some money. So at some point we have to do some value exchange, right? So to activate the lead, you might find that it might be worth doing a product or prospect. So you want them to spend with you, either spending money, like nominal amounts. So for example, you're selling £1,000 or $1,000 product. $1,000 might be too big a jump for someone that doesn't know you on the internet to buy. So from $0 to $1,000 might just be too much of a jump. But if you had, for example, a $50 or $100 product, then maybe they might be willing to take a risk on that. So what is the product or prospect, or I think the technical term is a tripwire. What's the low cost, still good value, but low cost products you can offer them that gives them a sense of what your work is like before they can then commit to buy the core or the main product, right? And it could either be an investment of time or of money. Ideally, I prefer money, right? Because when people put their money down, they tend to pay attention. But I think also it depends on, I suppose, what you're selling. If you're selling a luxury product, you may find actually it's better that they put their time down because they put their time down, time is more expensive to them than money is. So depending on your customer base, you decide what makes sense as a show of commitment, right? So how do you nurture and how do you get them to activate and buy something initially with you? And then once they've activated and you think like they're ready for the sale, how do you then get them on a call to do a proper call and assess their needs and sell to them? Usually, if we rush the sales process, we come across as salesy because this guy they're not ready for the sale. They look at you. It's a very cold interaction and it feels rushed. But if you build them up to it, usually they are ready. Everybody's ready, and it feels more organic as a next step to sell. Especially if you found them on the internet, like selling them $1,000, £1,000, $1,000 because it's a dollar audience. $1,000 product might be too big a job, right? But so if you've nurtured it properly, then usually that is a easier process, right? Same thing with the delivery process. So when you deliver, being clear again on what the exchange is. So what do I need to give the customer to get what I want from them, right? And when I do get what I want from them, how am I measuring my progress? So I've put at the bottom here some suggested metrics that you may want to consider. So with the brand awareness, you may want to consider things like if you've got various marketing channels, for each channel that you do have, you want to measure. So if you're doing Facebook, you're doing TikTok, you're doing all these other platforms, you want to measure how many qualified leads am I getting from these platforms? Because sometimes we're doing so much, and if we're not measuring what is actually working, you just end up working, 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 and really of the five channels that you're working on, only two really produce results, right? So if you find that over time only these two are producing results, they may want to double down on the two, maybe not kill the other three altogether, because it could be that those three are passive but they help with other things in the pipeline that is not yet apparent, but you want to double down on what is working, especially if you have limited resources. Hopefully that all makes sense, right? So the idea of this, right, is I want to give you enough to go away and do it yourself. The idea is think of your business in these six pillars, right? And for each of the six pillars, be clear on the goals. And for each of the pillars, be clear on what you're going to offer the customer in exchange for what you want from them, right? So if you want them to be ready to buy your product, then what are you going to offer them in that journey to be sure that they're ready so that when they book a sales call with you, you know that they're likely going to convert, right? So you don't waste so much time like doing sales calls with people that are not ready to be sold to, right? And making sure that you measure each of the steps across the way as well. Why did you say two, three channel? Arbitrary. It was just a random thing. It was just there's no science behind it, Darren. I wish there was. Um, so to take it back to what I said about three ways to grow, if we look at this proposed customer journey map that I'm giving to you guys, and what I said about at the start about there being only three ways to grow, if you took a step back and actually mapped out your business in the six pillars, like I said, you don't necessarily need to work on all six pillars at the same time. What I then invite you to do is think about the three business growth levers. Are you at a point in your business growth where you honestly you just need more customers? Like you just don't have enough customers right now, and you just need to just go do more brand awareness and nurturing. In which case, of the six pillars, your focus needs to be the first two. I need to do more brand awareness and nurture, make sure my messaging is clear so that I can get more people through the door. Or is it the case that you just need to increase your prices because your pricing and profitability is not as it could be, in which case you want to look at your delivery, right? So are you selling to the right people? Is your sales, are you attracting the right high paying customer? Are you well priced? And also is your delivery, are your operational costs well managed? Or it could be that you've got so many customers, you've been in business for such a long time, but your retention rate is so low. So you sell to a customer once or twice and you forget about them and you're spending so much time trying to get new business and not really nurturing or caring for the customers you do have. In which case, I want to recommend that you may want to focus on customer retention. And what that looks like is making sure your delivery, you're tracking the time to value, you're telling the customer the value you're giving to them. So, because sometimes we do stuff and we think the customer has seen what we've done, but unless you explicitly say to them what you've offered them, they might forget or not realize it. So you want to recap. By the way, we started this 6 months ago, in 6 months, we've achieved blah, 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 blah. What are your thoughts? How do you feel about that? And really making sure that they're happy and they have a chance to give you the feedback. And also, if it's a good feedback, publish it on the internet, on Google reviews, whatever review platform makes sense for your industry, so that again, it shortens your sales cycle. And also asking them for referrals, right? And also you thinking, what else can I sell to this customer to really improve it? So I want to invite you, the way you could, I have, sure, I'll come to that in a minute, Caroline. The way you may want to implement this in your business is what I just talked about, right? Is first step, think about your business in 6 pillars. Once you've done that, think about the three growth levers that we talked about. Of the three growth levers, which of these three is the most pressing for your business right now? That should be your focus. Don't try and grow in all directions at the same time. It's too much. You just overwhelm yourself and you can't even measure what you're doing anymore, right? That's how I would implement this. Does that all make sense so far? Who have I lost? Tell me in the chat. You've lost me. I don't understand this anymore. I want to give up. And if you're really, really confused, by the way, I want to invite you to take this quiz and also scan this QR code. It's a mini quiz on like it tells you exactly where I think which of these three areas you might want to look at, where I feel like you may want to focus on in more detail. Monica says, I understand, but I need more depth. Okay, let's see. We're going to go deeper, but hopefully this is a good starting point. This is me laying the foundation, right? So, but feel free to take this quiz. I think it'll give you a lot more, it's more tailored because this, of course, conversation has to be quite broad because I don't know each of you individually, but this quiz hopefully gives you some picture on where specifically you might want to focus. Okay, moving on. So all that was me laying the foundation. But can I just say, before we get into this, as a prerequisite for this training, ideally, this is intermediate level training. I'm assuming that you've already started your business and now you're wanting to grow. I'm not intending this at startup businesses, and you'll see why in a minute. The intention is this is more this is more, I'll talk about the AI piece in a minute. Um, to be AI, just because someone just asked me, how do you leverage AI? I think we get too excited about AI sometimes. AI ultimately is a tool. The first step is understanding this process. Once you understand this process, AI then becomes the amplifier because all of this stuff, once you get it, you can then sit with an AI tool and say, my business is I don't know, I'm a weight loss coach for women that has 2 children. How can what are the best lead magnets for my business? AI will tell you what the lead magnets are. When it tells you what they are, maybe says it's a quiz. Okay, help me design a quiz. So you can use AI to, but you need the framework. AI does not take away the need for human beings to sit down and think of process on paper, right? No tool, no AI is going to solve this. So I really want this to be clear first. So yeah, this prerequisites here are important, right? So I need people to be, this is not startup friendly. This is more, I've started, I want to grow. So I'm assuming 5 things. I'm assuming that you have a clear pain point that you're solving. So you know exactly what the problem is that you're solving. You know your market size, you know your competition landscape, you know the macro environment. I'm assuming you have a clear product. So you know exactly what your products would offer the customer. You know the time to basically have a clear offer statement that you already presented to the customer. You know exactly who you're selling to, number 3. Number 4, you know yourself as the business owner and the founder. You know what works for you, what doesn't work for you. You know your strengths. You know what resources you have and what your unfair advantage is. So for some of us, for example, you already have a vast network of, I don't know, potential target customers that you can just go and do an in-person event to. And that's a better marketing or go-to-market strategy for you than trying to do Facebook or trying to do LinkedIn or trying to do all these other social media things. Or you're a great speaker, you're better off just going to conferences and speaking, or you're a great writer. So it's what do you already have that's an unfair advantage that you can play to advance to your interest in building your business. And then number 5 really puts all these things together is you found product market fit. So you have a clear product, a clear audience, and you have a repeatable way already of selling to those people. I will not be covering this 5 in this. I'm assuming this already exists. If it doesn't, I've got a separate training on this. If you would like it, then tell Bill, and I'm happy to schedule training on this with Bill in the future. But for now, I'm just assuming that you guys are already in business and just want to grow. So let's get into it. I'm going to talk now about like just a bit more on why you should think about why this is important and how you might go about implementing it for your business. So why have customer journey sales funnel, CX, same thing, right? So a funnel, customer journey, CX, customer experience, the whole thing, there's just different words for the same thing. Simply put, it's a series of activities, as we've seen, the six pillars, can't speak anymore. Series of activities that convert strangers into customers and keep them coming back. I think simply put, think about it as ABC. So it's a way to accelerate the buyer's commitment, right? So it's a how do you keep getting them to buy into you and enjoy the process as they do so. Um, did you guys know this, that 80% of your business's future revenue is going to come from 20% of your existing customer base, right? So your entire business revenue, 80% of it is going to come from 20% of your existing customer base. I think this is important to note, right? Because too often we ignore the existing customers that we have and we're chasing the new shiny things like, oh, AI, or chasing, was it Blue Sky? That's the new tool that has come out now. That's the new social media. We're chasing shiny and we're ignoring what we currently have, right? And we forget the 80-20 rule holds for most things in life, right? So if 80% of your revenue is going to come from 20% of your existing customer base, then really, if you're from an existing business, I want to double down on what I already have and make sure that I have systems in place to make sure that I am maximizing to the full my existing status quo before I start chasing new shiny things. Yeah. Um, Also, did you guys know that as part of this lead nurturing thing, it's so important because for most people, I think it's probably getting higher in these our days of internet and short attention spans. Most people require 5 to 7 interactions with a brand before they're ready to buy. So them just seeing your brand once on social media or like on Facebook or you doing one exhibition is not enough for them to remember, to be sticky. This is why you want to capture their emails or capture their details and keep nurturing them so that so that they can get to know, like, and trust you and remember you in the long term, right? And the second point I think I already covered, right, is retention really is the most businesses of the future are going to be built based on community and retention. So your ability to not just attract, but to retain the customers you do attract is what's going to be the game changer. Both of these things are hard to do without a system. This is why this is important, what we're talking about today. And if I've not sold you enough on this enough, 4 more points, and hopefully I make the point. Number one, why you need to have a system or customer journey mapped out is that's the way you can start to predict your sales and predict your pipeline. Because if you're clear on your 6 pillars and you know exactly how many leads you have in your pipeline and what your typical conversion rate is, then you can start to predict, okay, next month, given that I've got 100 leads in my pipeline and my conversion rate is about 20%, I know that I could potentially convert about 20, I'll have about 20 customers next month and I sell my product for about £1,000, $1,000. So 20 customers, $1,000. So I'll have about 20K next month. So if 20K is good enough for you and matches your cash projections, then check. You're good, you know? It means that you're on track to hit your cash projections for next month. But without that kind of data, you can't predict where there might be gaps in your in your funnel or in your pipeline and where you need to double up on. What would happen would be that you're then very reactive. You're waiting until next month comes, and the next month comes, your sales are low, and you're like, oh my God, my sales are low. But at that point, it's too late. You can't do anything about it because now it's a lagging metric. So when people don't know their pipeline, they tend to track lagging metrics. They tend to track things like revenue or things that they can't control. You can't control your revenue, but you can control how many people you get into your pipeline. Yeah. So it's by you having a clear pipeline, you have a lot more control over your business and you're now tracking things that matter because there'll be things that you can control as the business owner. Secondly, it's a chance, like I say, to build a relationship with the customer, right? To really kind of accelerate their buys. So you don't have, I think, done well, you tend to have more loyal customers that feel like they've been carried along and they've gotten value at every step of the way. You haven't done any kind of hard sales or like uh hard tactics to get them to sign because they've kind of built that know like trust over a period of time and also you don't feel the need to rush them because you've built a healthy pipeline so you have time to nurture people and you're not in a hurry to get people through over the line, right? So it takes away desperation on both ends and hopefully reduces the amount of returns and refunds that you're having to do. um Number three, done well, you have a higher lifetime value of a customer because then you can see exactly where you can upsell and cross-sell things to customers, and you can have better retention plans for each customer. So you can really maximize the lifetime value of every customer that you get. And number four, I think, as I've already mentioned here, it's a great way to build community and build trust in the ecosystem. So I think this is, if for nothing at all, this is why I think these four reasons are why I think it's important to consider really mapping out your customer journey for your business. Um, okay, I think you guys have probably already seen this, right? So if you have a CRM already, you probably have seen something similar to this, right? You have a dashboard that shows you how many opportunities or leads that you have. It tells you how much each lead might be worth for you. It tells you what your conversion rate tends to be, right? And you can see it also visualized as well. Again, like I say, as a business owner, having such a dashboard gives you so much more power because now you can see, oh, okay, our conversion rate is dropping. Like, why is it dropping? Are we slacking on our sales? Like, is our messaging not clear? What do I need to tweak? We don't, so you do something so you can see clearly like which levers makes most sense to pull in your business at any given period. I use Zoho, but honestly, I think the CRM you use depends on your business. Right now I use Zoho, but I don't think that's I think it's worth looking at your business and your industry and determining what makes sense for you, Darren. I'm sorry, this is a duplicate slide, so I'm going to skip over this. So my prerequisites are already covered. Duplicate slide, apologies. So let's talk about how you implement your CRM for your business. How am I doing for time? Oh my God. Okay, let's see. 8 steps to implement a sales funnel or a customer journey. Number one, I think I already talked about. So having that prerequisite in place. So really knowing, I'm assuming you have product market fit already. So you know who you're selling to, you know what you're selling to them, you know how to find them as well, right? So that whole part needs to be clear. Otherwise, there's no point trying to automate something that's not clear. If it's not clear, then I suggest really doubling down on that. Um, and doing that manually and really testing the market first before you start trying to build any systems or automate. Because automations by itself does not solve a broken process. If the process is broken, it's broken. The tool is just going to amplify the fact that the process is broken. Yeah. Step two, choose your traffic sources, right? So where are the leads going to find you from? I say 3 to 4, but honestly, I think no more than 4. You want to try and vary it as well. So you may want to have like one online source, one offline source, one that can help you build a community, whether it's a Facebook group, so one that you can interact with people and build that kind of followership and tribe, and and maybe a paid source as well. So I don't think you need to have that many. I think if you're just starting out, 1 or 2 is plenty to get started, and you can slowly add on more traffic sources as you get more comfortable. Think about what lead magnets you want to have, right? So if you're trying to attract people, you have to give them something in exchange, right? Because it's a transaction. Number four, once they've come into your world through your lead magnet, what low value product service can you offer them to give them a flavor of what transformation you can offer them, right? So if you're going to sell somebody £1,000 or more product, you might find that it will be easier to convert them. They can try, or they can they can do something that is not so expensive with you initially first. That gets them over the threshold, and then hopefully they can then build up to buying the more expensive services with yourself. Of course, you can aim to sell the big one upfront, but it just means you have a longer sales cycle. I think having a product or prospect or tripwire helps to shorten your sales cycle because then it reduces the risk from the customer's perspective. Number five, your core product. So what's the main thing that you're offering people, right? And again, like I said before on the core product, one thing I find most business owners get wrong here is it's sometimes too complicated. Like it takes too long to see value on the core product. And so you lose people. Buyer's remorse gets in too early. So on the core product, making sure that you've created clean milestones such that people are getting value as soon as possible. And there's like that quick dopamine hit, like, yes, it's working, right? And as they get the value, you want to get in there, ask them for reviews, ask them for feedback. You don't have to wait until the full product is delivered for you to get reviews and referrals, right? As soon as they get in the first milestone, you can go whilst it's still fresh, asking for the reviews, asking for referrals. Number six, what upsell? So once they've done your core product, what else can you offer them, or what can you bundle to really maximize the order value of this customer with you? So think about like McDonald's, right? You go to McDonald's for a Big Mac, and then they offer you fries, they offer you something else, right, to really increase your total order value, right? So how else can you, or you go to Apple, you buy the Apple phone and then they offer you the AirPods and there's something else and there's like, or they offer you insurance, offer you Apple Care. So they're finding other things to keep you within the ecosystem, right? Six, 6 and 7 are similar, right? So it's what's the return part? Like how are you going to keep them within your ecosystem, whether it's a subscription, whether it's how do you keep them coming back for your business? And if it doesn't make sense for your business, don't force it. It doesn't have to be you yourself that provides these services, guys. It could be that you partner with somebody else. So if, say, for example, I don't know, you're a coffee shop, right? You want to sell coffees, but there's a bookshop around the corner. Can you partner with them and you guys do something together, right? And you guys help each other grow, right? Or you're a chiropractor, you help people with their backs. Can you partner with what they call the guys that help with the foot doctors to this? You get the gist, right? So it's a find other people within your ecosystem where you can help each other grow. And I think importantly for each of these steps, having clear KPIs. So at the end of the month or at the end of whatever given period, you can track and see what worked, what didn't work, what should I change, what should I leave as is, right? So you can really measure the growth. Um, I don't think there's anything. I think this is now foot reflexology. Thank you, Caroline. Yeah, so chiropractor, foot reflexology, because hopefully it's all, holistic things together, so it's what makes sense. Of course, if you're a chiropractor, I don't want you to go partner with McDonald's, for example, right? Because it doesn't make any sense, right? Health and fast food. So it has to make sense within your ecosystem. What was the point eight? Point eight was KPIs, Monica. It was making sure you can measure. So each of these steps I talked about, they are key metrics. So you're not just doing stuff blindly. You want to make sure you can track and see that you are making progress and the effort you're putting in is yielding the right result. Yep. How many KPIs? Great question. I was going to come to that, Darren. You're full of great questions today. Honestly, I think just don't overwhelm as many as you can manage, but I think no more than two. I don't want, let me come to that in a minute. I don't want to contradict myself. Um, yeah, I like two. Yeah, 2 to 3, I think is fine. I think, yeah, it depends on the size of your team, but not too many. It depends on what also you're trying to focus on for that quarter, what your overall goal is. Because if your goal is more customers, then have KPIs for a quarter that focuses on more customers. If your goal is something else, then make sure the goal and the KPIs match up. Yeah. So I promise you, I'll give you some examples of lead magnets. Here are some that you may want to consider, right, for your businesses. So ebooks, a free course, a coupon code, take a screenshot, of this, right? In terms of how you get started with all of this, so I've told you the 6 steps you want to build. I think a good way to get started is to copy best practice, right? Be an artist, the best artist still. So go find who do you, I don't even like the word competitors necessarily, more who do you find, because there's enough to go around for everybody, but it's who in your space do you find aspirational or inspires you? When you find that person, there's a tool called SimilarWeb. You can put their web address on SimilarWeb, and SimilarWeb will tell you what the key traffic sources are for your counterpart, your industry counterpart, competitor, for lack of a better word, right? And you can see, like, for example, within your industry, most leads tend to come from most people, for example, maybe tend to use LinkedIn most, or tend to use Facebook most, tend to use whatever is the common practice for your industry. I want to suggest that you start with the industry best practice, because unless you have the resources of Elon Musk or resources of Apple, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. If it's already working for them, then it's probably going to work for you, right? So I'll start with what's already working, right, and implement that first, and then I will then add twigs to make it my own over time. But that will be the first practice. So it's go on SimilarWeb, see where your competitors are getting traffic from, and try and see how you can incorporate into your customer journey. Facebook ads library is a great place. So if Facebook ads are a thing in your space, I'll go on Facebook ads library and check my competitors and see if they're running ads. If they are running ads, it will tell you on Facebook ads library, and you can also see the type of ads they run. You can see what kind of words and language they use, right, in their ads. All of this stuff is you gathering information that you can then put into your AI tool and say, hi, AI, I'm in XYZ space. My competitors are blah, 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 blah. Here are the types of ads they're running. Based on this, what do you suggest I do? Right. So you can start to use AI as a business coach, right, to really help you craft each of these pillars and the content that you need for each of the steps. Yeah. And then once you have all of the data put together, I suggest a good starting point is pen and paper, right? Don't overcomplicate things. Get it on pen and paper and map it all out and make sure it makes sense to you first on pen and paper. I think once it's clear to you on pen and paper first, at that point, you can then start to look to systemize and put it on a fancy tool or digitize it. But I find that too often, because we don't really understand it ourselves and it's not clear to us, and we jump into using a tool, frustration tends to be the outcome because, yeah, it's not clear what we're talking about, and we're just kind of hoping that we all understand what we mean, and yeah, it's not clear. So, getting on pen and paper first, yeah, and copy what makes sense for your industry. Hopefully that will make sense. Again, like I say, if not, put questions in the chat. I've got to type on advanced apologies. This is more advanced level points. If it's TMI, ignore me. Just bear with me for 2, 3 slides. If I'm telling you too much, just close your ears for this next 2, 3 slides. Um, I just wanted to say here that this whole customer journey thing, if it's done well, it becomes a flywheel for your business. It becomes the bedrock of what makes your business sustainable. It means that you're now no longer dependent on having to run ads every month and frantically do stuff to get people through the door. It's now more of a self-sustaining thing because you've created a proper ecosystem around your business that makes it more self-sustaining. Because like you get new customers, you deliver good value, they leave you good reviews. The good reviews mean that you're able to get newer customers faster because the good reviews mean that people see your good reviews and like, oh my God, they must be good. I should probably go buy from them, and you're not having to oversell yourself anymore. So that shortens your sales cycle. And the customers you're already serving are telling people about you. So you're getting referrals from them. So you see what I mean? So the whole thing starts to become a self-feeding ecosystem, and a self-sustaining flywheel over time, right? So that's one thing I want to point out here. And then also, when you think about your brand awareness and your lead nurturing, I think it's important to think about, this is why I said you want to measure each channel. So you want to measure the quality of leads, so the marketing qualified leads you're getting per channel. Because some channels are cheap to get your message on, but they don't always attract the best quality leads, right? Some are more expensive, but you get better quality from. So depending on where you put your messaging, would also determine the quality of prospects or leads that you get through the door. If the quality is not so great, then it means you have to spend more time nurturing the leads. There's this concept of, 5 levels of awareness of any lead. Some leads would be like completely unaware they have a problem. I suggest, honestly, if I was as a small business owner, I would not try and talk to people that are unaware that they have a problem. It's hard to tell people that they have a problem if they don't know that they have a problem, because then you sound like their mother, right? You're trying too hard to convince them. You're better off starting with people that already know they have a problem and trying to convert them than the guys that don't know, right? On the KPI point to Darren's, I think 2 to 3, ideally, for a quarter. Focus on that. I think any more becomes too hard to keep up. You also want to make sure you're tracking leading metrics, not lagging ones. So you're tracking things like leads on your pipeline, not revenue. You want to make sure you're tracking things that are actually actionable, not vanity metrics. So things like um, likes don't really mean anything necessarily. Like if you want to track things that actually make sense to your business, and make sure the metric you're tracking makes sense for your business, for the audience you're tracking it for. If you're tracking it for investors, will be different from if you're tracking it for you as the manager of the business, right? And if you have a team, you may want to assign a champion to each KPI, because then you can hold people accountable for it. Yeah. Um, so to summarize what we said, the key to growth is having a clear customer journey. And a clear customer journey is, I think, the 6 key pillars. So by you mapping out the 6 key pillars for your business, and also having clear metrics for each step, it becomes easier to measure your growth and also systemize things as you go. So question as I wrap up, what has been your key takeaway in the chat? Please let me know. Let me know in the chat. And can I also recommend next steps? As next steps, you could please post any key takeaways on socials and tag me. Feel free to. I'm quite active on LinkedIn, by the way. I really like LinkedIn as my favorite social media tool. So feel free to take screenshots, tag me on LinkedIn, and let me know what you learned from it. I think Bill is going to reach out to ask for feedback on the session. Please, 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 please give him feedback, because it helps me improve as well. And if you didn't take a screenshot, the link of the growth scorecard, please take it now. And I recommend taking the growth scorecard so you know exactly which of these you would like help with or need help with. And I'm going to open up the floor to questions. Sorry, I didn't keep my promise, but I'm happy to stay as long as Bill would have me to answer questions. Bill, over to you, sir. Do you want to help me with questions? or how do you want to do it? Raise your hands and ask questions because I think
Yeah,
I've done a good job of answering questions as I went.
yeah,
I think.
if you have questions, please enter them through the chat feature.
Yeah, I'll get the QR code up as well. If you have questions, just raise your hand and come because I think I've answered all the questions in the chat. I'm going to also go back to the QR code. That's it there, guys. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate it. She says, awesome presentation. That made me blush. Thank you. Never get tired of hearing that. It helps. Uh, good. Yeah, fair enough. I hear you about the misleading. Greg, I hear you. I was going to be more AI and I thought on reflection it might be too advanced, Greg, to do too much automation stuff. But I could do a part two and talk about how you can automate all of this stuff with AI. But I think the first part is really getting the process in place. Sure. Greg says there should be a part two on how to automate it. Happy to do the part two if you can organize with Bill. I'd be happy to come back. Thank you, Darren. Any questions, guys? What didn't make sense? What do you guys want to challenge me on? Somebody said they wanted me to. I think, Gabriella, you get a recording. Bill's taking a recording and he's going to send it to you. So, yes, you'll get the recording. Thank you.
Yeah,
You're
it'll
welcome,
be a
Tanya.
couple of days before you get it because of some technical issues here, but you will get it. So.
Any more questions? There should be. Yeah, for startup, Darren, yeah, I agree. Again, put that in your feedback for Bill. And if Bill would have me come back and do a part two, level 0 for startups, I'm happy to come back. So let Bill know. Bill's my boss.
I'll send you an email later on and get your inputs on what else you could offer.
Okay, sure. Part two, please. Any quick advice on brand development? Brand development. I don't know. What do you mean by that, Jennifer? What exactly do you want? Because I think the key thing on brand development is having a clear offer. So what exactly you can offer and being able to showcase your credibility. And credibility is like either reviews or I think this goes back to my beginner presentation, Jennifer. But the key thing is clear offer and also credibility. And then all the aesthetics comes later. So the colors, the fonts, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, of course. I imagine you know that already, but but I think that at the heart of it really is what do you do and how can we trust you? Wonderful takeaways. Yeah. Well done, guys. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. There's no questions. I think I've gone through all the questions. Any suggestions on the particular? I personally call on I like ChatGPT. It was the first one that went mainstream, and for me, it works quite well. So I've stuck with it. I haven't really ventured out to use the others as much. But again, I'm happy to talk to you about the others. Perplexity is also a good one because it's more current than ChatGPT. So you can use it for when it comes to generating content ideas for your social media. I think Perplexity tends to be a good one to use. But to somebody else's suggestion, I think if Darren would have me, I'll have a part two on actual automation to use. I'll put my LinkedIn in the chat as well. Feel free to connect with me. I don't see any more questions in the chat, Bill.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amy, for joining us late at night your time or early night your time. And I appreciate the rest of you joining. On the 18th at noon, we have a Google presentation on cybersecurity for small business. On the 25th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we have Launch Your Business with Customer Focused Marketing. And then in March, we have Get Your Business on Google Search and Maps, Make Your Website Work for You, and Building Credit for Your Business. So thank you all for being here. And I'll get the recording out in a couple of days. So appreciate your help. Thanks for joining. Thank you, Yemi.
Thank you, Bill. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Everybody.